A little girl is crying in the back of a police cruiser. Her name is Lily Harper. She is 8 years old. Her shoes are still untied from the mall, laces dragging against the seat. Her hands are pressed flat against the window, like she's trying to push her way back outside. A few feet away, a woman stands with her arms half raised, palms open. It's the posture of someone trying very hard not to make things worse. Her name is Danielle Foster. She's 39. She's still wearing the cardigan she had on for work that morning. A small coffee stain visible on one cuff. An officer stands between them. He isn't touching Danielle. He isn't restraining her. He simply holds one hand out, palm forward, keeping her from moving any closer. "Please," Danielle says. Her voice is steady, but it takes effort to keep it that way. "Don't leave her alone like that. She's going to think I left her." The officer's name is Travis Boone. He doesn't move. "Ma'am, I need you to stay where you are." "I am staying where I am," Danielle says. "I'm asking you to let her see my face." Inside the cruiser, Lily's crying gets louder. Not like a tantrum, like panic. The kind of crying that doesn't stop just because an adult says everything is okay. Because as far as Lily can tell, nothing is okay. "Call Megan Ortiz," Danielle says again. It's clearly not the first time she's asked. "She's Lily's caseworker. She will tell you exactly who I am." Boone doesn't answer. He's looking at the laptop mounted inside his cruiser, pale blue light washing across his face. A second officer, Dana Wells, stands closer to the car, watching Lily through the glass. Her expression doesn't quite match her partner's certainty. Then a car turns sharply into the lot and stops hard. A woman steps out, a badge in one hand, a phone in the other. She doesn't look at Danielle first. She doesn't look at the officers either. She looks straight at the cruiser. Why is Lily in a police car? Nobody answers. She starts walking toward them. Why is Lily in a police car? Officer Boone finally speaks. "Ma'am, this woman isn't showing up in our system as an authorized caregiver for this child. The woman is Megan Ortiz. She has been Lily's caseworker for the past 11 months. She doesn't hesitate. Then your system is wrong." That's the moment this story actually begins. Not with an accusation. Not with a crime. With a caseworker standing in a parking lot, telling 2 armed officers that the official record they'd been trusting was wrong. To understand how everyone got here, we have to go back 40 minutes. Before the cruiser, before the flashing lights, before anyone thought the word abduction belonged anywhere near Danielle Foster. Because the real question isn't whether Danielle belonged with Lily. Megan has already answered that. The question is why an official system said she didn't, and how many decisions got made before anyone thought to question the system itself. 40 minutes earlier, it was an ordinary Saturday. Danielle Foster had been a licensed foster parent for 6 years. During the week, she worked as an elementary school counselor, a job that had taught her to notice small changes in kids before they became big ones. It's a skill that doesn't turn off just because it's the weekend. Lily had been placed with Danielle almost a year earlier. It wasn't an adoption. It wasn't permanent. It was a licensed, documented, state-approved foster placement. Current, active, renewed. The kind of arrangement that's supposed to exist in triplicate somewhere in a system built to keep track of exactly this. That Saturday, the 2 of them were at the mall. Lily was trying on sneakers with a strip of glitter running along the soles, turning her foot side to side under the store lights like she was inspecting a diamond. "They're going to get scuffed in a week," Danielle said. "I don't care." Lily smiled. "They're perfect." It was, by every measure, a good morning. Then Danielle's phone buzzed. She read the message twice before she said anything. "Hey, bug." She crouched down until she was at Lily's eye level, another habit from work she'd never unlearned. "Your visit with your mom got moved. She's not going to be able to come today." Lily's expression collapsed all at once. She said she'd come. "I know," she said. "I know, sweetheart. I know she did." Lily looked down at the glitter shoes. Her voice went small. "I want to go home." "Okay," Danielle said. "We're going home." To Danielle, that sentence meant exactly one thing. Home was the house where Lily had been sleeping for 11 months. It was the room with glow-in-the-dark stars still stuck to the ceiling. Ones Lily refused to let anyone take down, even though Halloween was months away. Home was routine. Home was safety. But 40 feet away, someone else saw only part of the moment, and part of a moment can tell a very different story. The woman who called 911 that afternoon wasn't lying, and she wasn't trying to cause trouble. She saw an upset child being walked toward a vehicle by an adult. Lily was crying. Every few steps she slowed down, hesitating in a way that looked, from a distance, like resistance. Then the caller heard her say she wanted her mother. That was enough to worry her, so she called. "There's a little girl," she told the dispatcher, her voice tight with real concern. "She's really upset. She keeps saying she wants her mom. The woman with her is taking her toward a car, and I don't know if this is some kind of custody thing, but I didn't feel right just walking past." She didn't invent anything. She reported exactly what she believed she was seeing, and making that call was never the injustice in this story. Nobody watching this should think otherwise. The problem started with what happened after uncertainty entered the system. By the time dispatch relayed the call to responding units, it had already been categorized: a possible abduction, a possible custody dispute. That framing mattered, because once officers are driving toward a scene already primed to look for one kind of danger, every new fact that shows up gets filtered through it. Danielle heard the sirens before she saw the cruiser. She stopped walking. She turned to face the officers directly. Lily moved closer to her side. Officer Travis Boone stepped out first. "What's your relationship to this child?" "She's my foster daughter," Danielle said. "I'm her licensed placement." The wording was deliberate. She didn't say Lily was legally her daughter. She didn't say she was basically her mother. She said exactly what was true, no more, no less. Because 6 years of doing this had taught her the truth only holds up if you don't dress it up. She reached toward her bag slowly, hands visible the whole time. "I have ID, I have my foster license number, and I have her caseworker's contact information, Megan Ortiz. She can confirm all of this in about 30 seconds. She handed over her driver's license, a printed placement authorization email, and a business card with Megan's direct line. Officer Dana Wells looked over the documents. She read the email once, then again. "This looks legitimate. Then call the person who sent it," Danielle said. Dana tried. The call went to voicemail. Megan was between 2 other emergency placements that morning, her phone silent in her bag. That's when a reasonable question turned into a dangerous stretch of uncertainty. While Dana tried Megan a second time, Boone entered Lily's information into the placement verification system officers use in the field. A name came back on the screen. It wasn't Danielle's. "You're not listed as her current caregiver," Boone said. "System shows a different placement." Danielle's jaw tightened, but her voice stayed level. "Then what you're looking at is outdated. I've had Lily for 11 months. That placement ended before she came to me." "This is the state system," Boone said, like that settled it. "And I'm telling you it's wrong." Nobody shouted, nobody threatened anyone. But that exchange became the hinge everything else turned on. There were now 2 versions of reality standing in that parking lot. One held together by the documents in Danielle's hand, the other glowing on a police laptop, and for the next several minutes, only one of them was going to be treated as authoritative. Dana crouched down a few feet from Lily. "Lily? Who is Danielle?" Lily frowned slightly, like the question didn't quite make sense. "She's Danielle. Does she take care of you?" Lily nodded. "She takes care of me." Then her eyes filled again. "I want my mom." All 3 of those statements were true at once. Danielle was Danielle. Danielle took care of her. And Lily missed her birth mother. An 8-year-old in foster care is allowed to hold all 3 of those things at the same time. That's not confusion. That's just what the situation actually is. But Boone heard the last sentence differently. It sounded like confirmation of the exact thing dispatch had already put in his head. And once it did, the rest of what Lily said carried less weight in his mind than it should have. "I think we need to hold here until we can verify this," Dana said quietly to her partner. We can't just let her leave with the kid while the system's showing something else, Boone said. On its own, that instinct wasn't unreasonable. When custody information genuinely conflicts, officers do have a responsibility to verify before letting a child leave the scene. The problem was never the pause. The problem was what Boone decided the pause needed to look like. We're going to separate them while we sort this out. Danielle turned sharply. Don't do that. Ma'am, don't move her away from me unless you absolutely have to. She doesn't understand what's happening. If you pull her away from the one person she recognizes right now, you're going to make her panic. And it's not going to help you verify anything faster. Boone didn't argue the point. He motioned toward the cruiser instead, his voice calm, no restraints, no force, just an open door and a gentle instruction. But Lily wasn't looking at the open door. She was looking at Danielle, who was being told to step back. Danielle, her voice cracked. I'm right here, Danielle said, hands still visible at her sides. I'm right here, baby. I'm not going anywhere. Ma'am, please step back. Danielle's voice rose for the first time. Still not a shout, but sharper now. You're making her more scared. Call Megan before you put her in that car. Please, just call her first. Megan's phone was still silent, and the decision had already been made. Lily was guided into the back seat. The door closed between her and the one adult in that lot she currently trusted. She started crying like she'd just been abandoned all over again. For the next several minutes, nothing moved the situation forward. Megan still wasn't picking up. The police-facing record still showed the wrong placement. Dana still had the email, which looked credible, but which the department wasn't willing to treat as conclusive on its own. No new witness showed up to break the deadlock. No pediatrician, no teacher, no neighbor with a folder of paperwork. It was just 3 adults, a database that wouldn't budge, and a little girl crying behind glass, while the minutes stacked up without anyone able to move faster. Then Megan Ortiz's car came around the corner and stopped hard. She was out before it had fully settled, badge and phone already in her hands, walking straight past both officers toward the only thing that mattered. Why is Lily in a police car? Megan confirmed her identity, then pulled up the agency's internal case file and turned her phone toward Boone. Danielle Foster, active placement. Started 11 months ago. Authorization is current. No removal order. Nothing pending. She is exactly who she says she is. Our system shows a different placement, Boone said again, though with noticeably less certainty than the first time. Then your system is wrong, Megan said. I have the current record right here. Dana called the agency directly to confirm. The response came back within minutes, and it matched exactly what Megan was holding. Danielle Foster had been Lily Harper's authorized foster placement the entire time. She hadn't become legitimate the moment Megan arrived. Megan hadn't changed anything about the truth. She had only corrected what the officers had been allowed to believe about it. Can I go to her now? Danielle asked. That was all she wanted to know. The cruiser door opened, and Danielle crossed the distance in 3 steps, dropping to Lily's height the moment the girl's feet hit the pavement. Lily didn't say anything. She just held on, the way kids do when the person they've been reaching for finally reaches back. Danielle held her there for a long moment. She didn't look toward Boone. She didn't look toward Dana. Nothing else in that parking lot mattered to her right then, and nothing needed to. Once Lily had calmed down enough to sit in Danielle's car with a juice box Megan produced from somewhere in her bag, Danielle finally turned back. Why wasn't I in their system? You should have been, Megan said. That's not an answer. It wasn't meant to be one. And that question is what moved the story from a mistake in the field to something bigger, a system failure standing behind it. The agency checked its own internal records. Danielle's placement was there, current. Correct. It had been correct for months. The police-facing verification record told a different story. It still reflected Lily's prior placement, the one that had ended nearly a year earlier. Somewhere between the agency's internal system and the tool officers used in the field, an update had failed to carry through. Nobody had caught the gap until it stopped being administrative and became a little girl sitting in the back of a cruiser. Megan pushed the discrepancy up the chain that same day. She refused to let it disappear into a case note now that Lily and Danielle were back together. The agency opened a formal review. The administrator who eventually sat across from Danielle was named Paul Renner. He ran operations for the Regional Child Welfare Office responsible for the database. He didn't pretend the mismatch was some kind of freak accident. "We've had sync failures before," he admitted. "Before?" Danielle repeated. "Cases where the current placement is correct in our internal system, but the update doesn't always appear correctly in the external verification record. It's a known issue." "How known?" He paused. "Known enough that staff have had to verify placements manually when it comes up." "So what was the workaround?" Another pause, longer this time. "We advised foster parents to keep current placement documentation with them, in case of exactly this kind of situation." Danielle sat with that for a second. So families were expected to compensate for a database the state never fixed. Paul didn't have a good answer because there wasn't one. Danielle had done everything they'd told foster parents to do. She had her ID. She had current documentation. She had the caseworker's name and number ready before Boone even asked for it. The problem was never that she showed up unprepared. The problem was that a stale record on a police laptop carried more weight in that first hour than the proof sitting in her hand. Most of the earlier mismatches, Paul explained, had been resolved quietly. A school pickup confirmed by phone. A welfare check cleared with one call to a caseworker. Small friction that got absorbed before it became anything more than an inconvenience. Until one Saturday, it wasn't small anymore. Then Paul opened an older file, and the room changed. Whitfeld, Aaron. Place verification dispix. Status. Resolved next business day. Danielle looked up. Next business day? Aaron Whitfield had been a licensed foster parent for almost 3 years. At the time of the incident, he was caring for a 6-year-old boy named Eli, in a placement that had been active and uncontested for nearly a year. One evening, Eli developed a sudden, dangerous fever and started struggling to breathe. Aaron didn't wait to see if it would pass. He got him to the emergency room in under 15 minutes, and doctors moved fast enough that a frightening night turned into a survivable one. By early morning, Eli was stable. That should have been the hard part. It wasn't. At discharge, hospital staff, required to confirm a guardian's authority before releasing a minor, ran a verification check. Aaron's own paperwork listed him as Eli's authorized foster placement. The agency's internal system said the same thing, but the external record used for after-hours verification still showed Eli's prior placement, the one that had ended months earlier. It was late. The emergency duty team was thin. Nobody could reconcile the two records fast enough, and hospital policy wouldn't allow staff to simply take Aaron's word for it, however calm and documented he was. So a temporary, supervised emergency placement was arranged for the night. Nobody accused Aaron of anything. Nobody called him dangerous. On paper, it was procedural, careful, even reasonable. None of that changed what it looked like to a 6-year-old. "You're leaving?" Eli asked. Aaron kept his voice as even as he could manage. "Just for tonight. I'll see you tomorrow. I promise." He walked out of that hospital alone, past the nurse's station, past a waiting room, into a parking lot that had no idea how many months he'd spent making that boy feel safe. The record was corrected the next morning. Once the right person was reachable, it took less than an hour. Eli came home to Aaron that same day. On paper, the whole disruption lasted under 24 hours. But paper doesn't remember the night. Eli does. They fixed the record in the morning. Aaron told Danielle, months later, sitting across from her at her kitchen table. "He still remembers me walking away that night." Neither of them said anything for a while. "Mine became embarrassing fast enough that somebody fixed it," Danielle finally said. "Yours had time to become normal." She didn't explain the line. She didn't need to. Her incident had happened in a public parking lot, with a caseworker arriving inside the hour to correct it on the spot. Aaron's had happened quietly, overnight, inside a hospital, with nobody outside those walls ever knowing it occurred, until it became just one more line in a file, softened a little more each time somebody typed it up. A little girl crying in a cruiser became a verification hold. A foster father walking out of a hospital without his son became a placement dispute. The labels were administratively tidy. The nights they described were not. The police department reviewed Danielle's encounter on its own. The review didn't argue that officers should have ignored the original 911 call. They shouldn't have. A member of the public had reported a distressed child in circumstances that reasonably warranted a response, and responding was the right call. Where the review found fault was in what happened after officers arrived, and conflicting evidence started piling up. Boone had given the database more weight than the documentation directly in front of him. He had discounted a credible email and a working phone number for a caseworker, even after his own partner said it looked legitimate. He had treated Lily's statement, "I want my mom," as evidence against Danielle, instead of what it actually was, a scared 8-year-old missing her birth mother while still being safely cared for by someone else. And he had chosen to separate Lily from Danielle before every reasonable verification option had been used, at the exact moment separation was most likely to cause harm and least likely to speed anything up. The findings did not label the incident in racial terms. They focused on how the officers weighed evidence, credibility, and risk, on what got treated as proof, and what got treated as noise, and how fast the gap between the two closed the moment a screen seemed to confirm what an officer already suspected. Dana's role got a smaller mention, but not none. She had recognized the credible documentation. She had recognized the path through Megan that could have resolved things faster. She'd said so, out loud. But recognizing a problem isn't the same as stopping it, and the review noted that difference plainly. Not as a villain's mistake, and not as a hero's near miss. Just someone who saw more clearly than her partner and didn't push hard enough on what she saw. The agency's accountability came slower. How many families have to be separated? Danielle asked Paul Renner in the meeting where the findings were finally presented, before a verification problem becomes an emergency instead of a known issue. He didn't have an answer. There wasn't a good one to give. What came out of that meeting wasn't a dramatic overhaul. It was 4 specific changes, each aimed directly at the exact gap that had swallowed Danielle's afternoon and Aaron's night. A 24-hour placement verification line, so officers and hospital staff could reach an authorized child welfare worker at any hour, not just during business hours when someone happened to be at a desk. Automated sync monitoring, so any time a current placement failed to appear correctly in the police-facing system, the agency would be alerted before a family found out the hard way. A secure digital placement credential foster parents could pull up in seconds, showing real-time status instead of a printed email officers had to take partly on faith. And a direct verification channel, giving authorized law enforcement and hospital staff a way to check the agency's current data directly, instead of leaning on a separate system that could silently fall out of sync. None of it undid what had already happened. But it was aimed at the actual failure, not just its appearance. Aaron's file was corrected too. Months later, once the pattern behind both incidents had been formally acknowledged. The old entry read, "Placement verification dispute. Resolved next business day." The corrected version read differently. Placement remained valid throughout. Separation resulted from a verification system failure, not from any deficiency in the caregiver. Aaron read it twice. "That would have helped 18 months ago," he said quietly. Neither of them pretended the correction changed what Eli remembered. It just meant the record finally matched what had actually happened, instead of the truth having to quietly match whatever the record used to say. Months later, Danielle pulled into the pickup line at Lily's school. A new staff member was working the gate that day, someone who hadn't been there long enough to recognize every parent by sight. For half a second, Danielle felt her whole body brace, the same tension that had been sitting somewhere under her skin ever since that Saturday. The staff member didn't ask for a printed email. She didn't reach for a phone to make a call that might or might not go through. She pulled up the school's secure verification system, typed in Lily's name, and waited 2 seconds for the screen to confirm what should have been obvious the entire time. "You're all set," she said, already smiling, already waving Danielle toward the doors. No officers, no panic, no calls up a chain of command, no child sitting alone in the back of a car, wondering if the person she trusted was ever coming back for her. Lily came bounding out a minute later, backpack half open, one shoe untied again. "Can we get fries? Didn't you just eat lunch?" Danielle asked. "That was school food," Lily said, like the distinction settled the matter completely. They walked to the car together, and nothing about the moment was remarkable at all. That was the entire point. A system had finally worked the way it was supposed to, quietly, in the background, without anyone having to raise their voice to prove they belonged exactly where they already were. Danielle never became someone who told this story often. But when other foster parents asked her, wondering whether the same thing could happen to them, she gave them the same 2 lines every time. The database was wrong. A pause, the same pause every time, like she was giving the words room to land the way they'd landed on her. The dangerous part was how quickly everyone decided that meant I was.